Right, so the Redmi Pad 2 Pro is promising big value, but is this tablet actually good for media, productivity and gaming? In this review, I'm going to be checking all of that out. Plus, we'll be having a look at the Redmi Smart Pen along with the keyboard case to see how that all fits in with the experience. So as we do here, let's see tech for what it is and jump into the in-depth review of the Redmi Pad 2 Pro. Let's start off by checking out what we get in the boxes, starting off with the Pad 2 Pro itself. Pop the lid off here. We have the Pad 2 Pro with some feature highlights on the paper sleeve. Slide that out of there. I'll power that on. That silver does look really nice, I have to say. I'll put that to the side for now. We get a USB-A to USB-C charging cable, the usual paperwork with a warranty card, quick start guide, and the new EU energy sheets, rated G. That's not good. And finally, an SD card tray ejecting pin. For the Redmi Smart Pen, we get a warranty card and a quick start guide too, along with a spare tip for the pen. And then the Redmi Smart Pen itself, peel that sticker off there. The pen has a nice white matte finish to it with some Redmi branding up top, where we have the USB-C port for charging. You have two function buttons, and then there's the tip of the pen itself, and then this tiny little charging indicator light. Pen feels good in the hand. Quite chunky but reasonably light at 12.7 grams. Other specs here are 4096 level pressure sensitivity, 10 gram activation force, and 12 hours battery life with continuous use, and supports 240 Hz touch sampling rate. No magnetic attachment to the tablet, unfortunately. And then a quick look at the 33-watt charger that comes as a gift with the Redmi Pad 2 Pro. Then the keyboard, which has a 65 keys layout and have 1.3mm travel. We have the power button and USB-C port for charging on the side. It has a 220 mAh battery, so you'll get around 65 hours of use or 960 hours standby claimed by Xiaomi. Pop the tablet in there, clips into place nicely, and then just pulling it forward into the slot, which seems like is magnetic for getting it to sit upright. Nice little keyboard case, I have to say. Has an almost leather-like finish to it, so it does feel quite good to the touch. It does add some overall weight as it weighs 450 grams itself, but good protection all around. Sides are left exposed, and it does also support smart wake and sleep too. Let's have a look at the design and build of the Redmi Pad 2 Pro. Up front, we have the 12.1-inch LCD display with symmetrical bezels all around, albeit they are quite a bit thick. Up top, we have the volume buttons, a couple of microphones, and the SD card tray, which supports up to 2TB cards. To the right, we have two speaker grills, the USB-C 2.0 port, so no video out unfortunately. Would have been nice to have had 3.1 here, but oh well. And then a headphone jack. Bottom is blank. Then to the right, two more speaker grills, some Dolby branding, and the power/lock button. No fingerprint reader on that one. Turning to the back, we can see this gorgeous silver finish. I'm really liking that, and it also comes in a lavender purple and graphite grey. It's a metal unibody design, so feels nice and premium in the hand. Redmi logo up to the top left, and then the usual regulatory text on the bottom there. We have a single 8-megapixel rear camera along with an LED flashlight, and the front-facing 8-megapixel camera in the bezel there. Weight-wise, it comes in at 610 grams, so not exactly the lightest tablet out there, but nothing too crazy. Thickness is 7.5mm, which is probably to house that massive 12,000 mAh battery. Other specs here are Wi-Fi 6 support, Bluetooth 5.4, has an accelerometer, gyroscope, Hall sensor, and a few other sensors. Table wobble isn't actually that bad, with a little wobble on the bottom left, but only if you proper tap the screen. Light touches, and it doesn't really register that much at all. So for the design and build overall, I think it's nice, feels premium. I do like this silver finish though. I'm quite digging the silver color finishes on devices. Feels like a nice and premium device. Let's jump in now to see how the display on this one performs. Starting off with the specs, the Redmi Pad 2 Pro has a 12.1-inch 2.5K LCD display with a 16:10 aspect ratio. PPI comes in at 249, so reasonably sharp, and refresh rate up to 120 Hz. Touch sampling rate is up to 360 Hz and supports Dolby Vision and wet touch technology. We'll start off by connecting the Redmi Smart Pen, and just hold one of the buttons, pops up, and hit connect. And you can use scribe feature, which lets you write into any text field. You have firmware updates, got one there, so we'll download that. And then you have the right button where you can hold for you to jump into notes, or the other button to take a screenshot. We'll set up the keyboard too whilst we're at it. Turn it on from the side and then hit connect, and you have a bunch of predefined shortcuts which you can amend as you wish. Cursor options if there was a trackpad, which there isn't, so I will grab my Bluetooth mouse and connect it up to finish this little setup. Now we're talking. Got the full little setup going here. Nice. Right, quick look in display settings. We have light and dark mode. Screen brightness tops out at 500 nits here with 600 nits for high brightness mode. Color scheme with options from from vivid, saturated or standard, and then adaptive colors toggle along with color temperature adjustments. And you have reading mode with cycle or classic that just adjusts the color temperature of the display. Refresh rate from default, which adjusts automatically, or custom with 60 Hz, 90 Hz or 120 Hz, and you can toggle which apps you want to allow to use 120 Hz. Then some lock screen options with raise to wake, double tap lock screen to wake, and double tap to sleep, and some others. You do get wireless display extension, so good for using it as a second display. As I demonstrated here with my MacBook Pro, there is a bit of latency, but I'm assuming that's because of the Wi-Fi connection, but for the most part works good and nice and useful feature to have there. When it comes to streaming content, Netflix supports level 1 wideband with full HD playback and Dolby Vision support, so content on Netflix is going to look really good. The difference here from last year's model was that the first Redmi Pad Pro supported 64 billion colors, whereas the Pad 2 Pro supports 1 billion colors, so just thought I'd mention that. But regardless, as I was saying, content looks really good on here with nice vivid colors, good color accuracy from what I can tell. YouTube supports 4K at 60 FPS with HDR streaming, and content at that quality plays back smoothly without any stutter or dropped frames. The HDR implementation isn't the strongest, doesn't deliver that kind of same punchy highlights or depth of contrast you'd get on higher end panels, but still makes videos look more dynamic compared to standard playback. Viewing angles aren't too bad here either, with a slight dip in brightness at more extreme angles and maybe a tiny little bit of a color temperature shift, but for the most part actually quite good. Outdoor viewing in stronger lighting, I think we know what to expect here. 600 nits high brightness mode does help a little, but the display will look a little washed out. Indoors, it's bright enough though. I think overall the display on here, I mean, minus those few little changes that Redmi have made compared to the first generation model, it's not too bad, to be honest. You're not really going to notice. This is a little bit better for those who are interested in maybe gaming on here with a higher touch sampling. For this price point, it's a good display. It's not the absolute best. Obviously, it's an LCD panel. Overall, I think you'll be more than satisfied with this display. We'll check out the Redmi Smart Pen. When it comes to writing, it's okay. I'd say not the most accurate, good enough to jot down some notes, and it does support palm rejection. The function buttons are handy. You can switch pens and colors with a single press. Latency wasn't actually too bad, as we can see in this slow down footage, doing a good job of keeping up with the pen's tip. But if you're looking to fill out forms and documents, then I guess you'll be okay for the most part. Writing up on lines is fine, and so is circling or underlining small text. So for those kind of simple tasks, the pen does a decent enough job. And for those interested in drawing on here, I mean, you'll be able to get down some basic sketches. It doesn't have tilt detection, so you're missing out on that feature. Pressure sensitivity is okay too, nothing groundbreaking, but you can put together a half decent sketch if you choose to do so. So overall, an okay experience. I have used pens that are a lot better, like on some of the Lenovo tablets or even the AI Note A2, which are far superior, but for the price, it's good value here. For speakers, we have a quad speaker set up on the Redmi Pad 2 Pro, and they support Dolby Atmos sound. In the settings, you can choose from either Xiaomi sound or Dolby Atmos, and then you have various graphic equalizer presets, or you can customize yourself. And then you have a couple of headphone adjustments, but we'll have a listen to the speakers. Warning, the upcoming volume will be quite loud.
If he is, we'll find him. He'll be the only sun-bleached skeleton with non-imaginary DNA.
So the speakers on here, yes, they can get very loud, but what I did notice at 300%, it loses quite a bit of quality. It sounds a bit too tinny. It'd want to hit 200% max. I think I personally prefer it about there because it starts distorting after 200%. So the volume boost isn't going to be for everyone. Good enough sound, obviously not the best bass response. Soundstage is decent, not bad, but for media consumption, it's going to be absolutely fine. They get really loud and room filling almost, but nowadays I found in most tablets the speakers really have stepped up. The inclusion of the headphone jack is another big plus to be able to connect wide headphones, so you get good quality sound from there as well. Dolby Atmos support definitely helps in that regard. I prefer that sound profile over Xiaomi sound, but overall I think good enough speakers for a tablet at this price. Under the hood of the Redmi Pad 2 Pro is the Snapdragon 7S Gen 4, an upgrade over last year's 7S Gen 2. We're getting either 6GB or 8GB of LPDDR4X RAM along with 128GB or 256GB UFS 2.2 storage, which is expandable up to 2TB. Would have been nice to have had UFS 3 on here. It's running on Xiaomi's HyperOS 2, and I believe it will receive 4 OS updates and 7-year security patches, but that does vary by region, and knowing us here in the UK, we're probably not going to get that. But in daily use, everything from browsing the web, jumping in and out of social media app feels fast and responsive. Apps open up quickly, switching between them doesn't really cause any stutter, and for the most part it handles the basics exactly how you would expect, smooth and reliable. Where it starts to get more interesting is with productivity. With my setup using the keyboard and a mouse, the tablet really does begin to feel like a lightweight laptop. You can comfortably run split screen apps side by side, open floating windows for that extra utility, and you can get paperwork done with word processing or spreadsheets, no problems using those. The chipset has enough muscle to keep things running without slowdown, and it makes the experience of using the Pad 2 Pro for actual work surprisingly practical. It's not just for casual use. Software side, a tablet runs HyperOS 2, which is generally a decent UI. Clean, functional, and most of the time everything works as intended. I mean, it's not flawless. There are some areas where refinement is still needed, and in my testing I did come across a couple of bugs, such as occasionally it would drop Wi-Fi and some apps were crashing here and there. These weren't constant issues, but enough to be worth pointing out. That said, outside of those hiccups, overall experience has been stable, fluid, and more than usable for everyday tasks. Benchmarks wise, we get reasonable scores such as Geekbench 6 here, so there's plenty of computing power to get most tasks done. Real test itself will be in the upcoming gaming section. Quick look at video editing on here for those interested in using it for that purpose. I have a 4K video loaded in CapCut, which is imported in at 1080p and is 4 minutes and 36 seconds long. Scrubbing is fine, maybe a tiny little bit of lag, but nothing drastic. I'll add some text here and then a couple of transitions, and I'm going to export that at 4K 30fps recommended bitrate, and that ended up taking 4 minutes and 15 seconds to export, so definitely not the fastest export there, but still a reasonable time. Gives you an idea of export times and such if you wanted to edit on here. Quick look at the keyboard itself. It is quite nice, it does what you need it to do. Key travel is okay at 1.3mm, so not the best but reasonable, and they're not really that loud either, making a little typing noise. I did notice a few keys sticking here and there, but overall it's spaced out nice enough so you can get both hands on there comfortably. No problems typing up documents, notes, or anything along those lines. And there are some handy function buttons like brightness controls along with volume control too, so good to see that kind of functionality. Checking out connecting an external storage device, I did at first have some issues getting it to recognize the hard drive, but after a reboot it worked fine. Playing back some 4K projects, we can see the read speed is a bit slow with a good few seconds of delay when you scrub through. It fares a little bit better with this 4K drone footage, but still a second or so delay when scrubbing. And transferring this 1.74GB file from the hard drive to the tablet's internal storage took just over a minute long to do so. So not the fastest out there or the slowest either, but somewhere in the middle. Now the fun part, gaming. As always, I'll be monitoring temperature, the time, room temperature, and we'll start off by connecting my PS5 controller to the tablet. Battery starting off is at 96%. I will bring the brightness up and the volume here too. On device temperature monitor is stating 27 degrees Celsius, room temperature is 22.7 degrees, and my temperature gun is picking up a peak of 30.7 degrees at the moment. Starting off with COD Warzone. We're getting peak graphics here, which I was surprised to see. I'll set FPS target to uncapped and everything else is set to high. I'm going to start off with a multiplayer game. I'll turn on boost on game turbo and we have set it to gaming mode. Now this FPS monitor here needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. From experience, I don't think it's the most accurate when it comes to monitoring at all, but we'll check it to have a general idea. The game itself is running no problem. Peak graphics look really good here. Not the best that I've seen them, but maybe I need to play the game more for it to load the better graphics. Still really good. FPS wise, it's running nice and smooth, and the monitor is picking up between the high 30s and 40s, which I'd say feels about right. 15 minutes in and pretty much the same story. FPS range is still staying the same and the game's been running fine. There was a couple of hiccups here and there, but nothing detrimental. Let's drop the graphic quality to low and see if that helps any with the FPS. Jumping back in, it does feel a bit smoother than before. There is a pickup on the FPS monitor too. Graphics still look okay, not as polished as before, but still decent. But the game running nice and smooth. Switching to peak graphics again and jumping into a Warzone game, I have to say it does feel quite a bit smoother on here compared to multiplayer. FPS monitor is also picking up a higher FPS than what we got on multiplayer at peak graphics, so that's good. But overall, good experience so far on COD Warzone. 22 minutes in, tablet's obviously warmed up a little, not as much as I thought it would, because Warzone can be quite demanding. And my gun is picking up a peak of 35 degrees. It does feel a little warm around the sides and the back near the camera module. Next up, Roblox. I'll max out the graphics out in the main settings and then in the additional it's maxed out there too. Now for the most part the game was running okay, but I did notice it did struggle here and there where it was dropping frames. The FPS monitor didn't pick any of that up, hence the pinch of salt earlier, but getting into the game a little, it kind of settled down and was running fine without any hiccups. In How to Train Your Dragon, I felt it was running quite a bit smoother than the previous Driving Empire game, but no hiccups here, and graphically it looked really good too. For COD Mobile we're getting very high graphic quality along with ultra frame rate, but we'll start off with max frame rate and I'll turn on everything else including super resolution. No problems at all here. Game was running nice and smooth, and FPS monitor is stating 60 FPS, which is probably the case. Graphically game looks really good and no lag or stutter that I noticed at any point, but we all know COD Mobile is a very well optimized game on most platforms. We'll switch over to ultra frame rate, which drops the graphics to low, and jump back into multiplayer game. And now FPS monitor is still stating 60 FPS here, but there's definitely an increase in the frame rate. It's running that a bit more fluid compared to before. I doubt it's hitting 120 FPS, but if I had to guess I'd say around high 90s or so. And then jumping into a battle royale game, same situation here, super smooth gameplay, nice graphics too, so across the board on COD Mobile you'll have a good experience. 44 minutes in now, and quick temperature check, we're getting a peak of 33.2 degrees. So far it's doing well to maintain good temperatures, but then again COD Mobile isn't that demanding on devices. Now want to really test it. Wuthering Waves, as usual everything is maxed out in the graphics settings and FPS target is set to 60. Jumping into the gameplay, it seems to be nice and smooth. This is where that FPS monitor goes a bit haywire. The cap here is 60 FPS, but it's saying we're hitting 100 plus, so no idea what it's doing there. But graphics wise the game looks very good, maybe not the absolute best that I've seen, and that could be because of the display quality, but still looks really nice. An hour of total gameplay now, and the game was running nice and smooth the whole time. I didn't notice any lag or stutter at any point, and this is when the temperature starts to increase, and it was feeling quite warm to the touch too. Gun picked up a peak of 37.6 degrees, and that's because Wuthering Wave is quite demanding, but still I've seen devices go 40, 45 plus when it comes to this game. They're doing a good job so far. For PUBG we get Ultra HDR as the highest and ultra frame rate, which I believe is capped out at 45 or 40 FPS, one or the other. And jumping into a game, FPS monitor is saying 60 FPS. I shouldn't even bother with that anymore to be honest, but yeah, game is running good. Graphics at Ultra HDR do look really nice too. We'll switch to Super Smooth, which is in beta, but unfortunately it didn't unlock Extreme Plus on here. Rather we get Extreme, which I believe is capped out at 60 FPS. And jumping back in there, definitely an increase in frame rate. The graphics have taken a hit as we would have expected, but running nice and smooth, so I guess 60 FPS is the highest you can play on here, unless they update it somewhere down the line and unlock 120 FPS. Quick look at War Thunder Mobile with highest graphics settings and 120 FPS target, and game visually looks really good, and we can see that actual in-game FPS monitor is staying between the 40s and 60s, whereas Game Turbo is saying 80s to 100 plus. But yeah, game runs nice and smooth. I'll bring the visual stuff to low and leave 120 FPS, and yeah, graphics now look bogus. It's running a lot smoother than before, with the built-in game FPS monitor picking up around the high 90s and 100 plus. Obviously it is fluctuating quite a bit. And then last game on the list today is GTA San Andreas. Set it to the highest resolution, and yeah, no problem here. Gameplay is nice and responsive. I know a lot of devices can struggle with this game not being playable at this level, but yeah, no problem here with it running all good. Just gonna drive around, smash everything up as I usually do, and we finish off with a total time of 1 hour and 20 minutes and peak temperature of 34.7 degrees picked up by my gun. So yeah, temperature wise it's done really well with nothing excessive at any point. Battery finishes off at 79%, so a total loss of only 17%. Gaming on here wasn't actually too bad to be honest. I felt like the tablet would have heated up more because I've experienced tablets, especially when playing Wuthering Waves, they can get really hot, but it maintained temperature reasonably well, and overall I think the experience is good. I know Xiaomi's in-game monitor, I don't know what's going on there with the FPS, just throwing out numbers as it pleases by the looks of it. Overall I think if you're wanting to game on here, of course you're not going to be able to get the highest graphics and highest frame rates, but for the most part you'll have a good experience of gaming on here. Keeping the lights on for the Redmi Pad 2 Pro is a large 12,000 mAh battery supporting 22 watt fast charging and 27 watt reverse wired charging too. You're talking up to 14 hours of video playback and 83 days standby as per Xiaomi's own stats. In the settings we get a remaining time meter along with a percentage of battery. I find these meters a bit misleading to be honest, but for modes you get balance and battery saver, which has a few options to configure it, like turn off when charged. Battery checkup will identify different ways to prolong the battery life with things like lowering refresh rate and clearing memory, and then battery protection with battery info, and then charging protection with charge fully to 100% protection, which will charge up to 80%, or smart charging where the system learns how you charge the device. We like smart, so let's pick that. And then the usage graph along with usage apps. I found the battery life really good here, paired with the efficiency of the 7S Gen 4 and that huge 12,000 mAh cell. Battery life is actually really good. You can easily get 2 to 3 days out of this with light medium use and a day of heavy use, as evidenced by the near enough hour and a half gaming session and only dropping 17% battery. Of course, battery life varies drastically as there are so many variables and to actually track and measure it is quite difficult, but for the most part, battery life on here was solid in my experience, so definitely a highlight of the tablet. For anyone interested in the cameras on here, you're getting basic stuff here, 8 megapixels on rear and the front camera. The camera app, you have things like documents, video, photo, portrait and pro modes. The front and rear camera support 1080p 30 fps video recording, and then in photo it's just basic stuff here really. For using it when it comes to video calls, I think that'll probably be the main reason people use the cameras on here. It suffices, does the job if you're using it for Zoom calls, team meetings, things like that. I personally don't really pay any attention to cameras on tablets. There are some people that do. Here's a few captures if you're interested. 1080p 30 fps video test. It's 2 times zoom and then 6 times. That's just a bunch of pixels all the way back to 1. So in conclusion, what do I think of the Redmi Pad 2 Pro? Overall, I think starting off with the design, it's pretty much what you would expect from a tablet in this price range. The aluminium back really does make it feel quite premium, and like I've said, really do like this silver finish on the tablet. Display on here is okay. Obviously for this price point, you're getting what you get. It's nothing amazing, but still plenty sharp, nice color accuracy on here, good color reproduction. So in that regards, it's going to be fine. The stylus on here is an okay experience. It's not going to be the most precise or the top of the line kind of experience you get with the stylus, but for general note taking and simple sketches, you'll be absolutely fine. Speakers on here were okay, quad speaker setup, so 4 speakers in total, Dolby Atmos tuned, just avoid going up to the 300% boost, but apart from that, good enough for media consumption. Performance with the 7S Gen 4, it's okay for this price point as well. Gets most of the stuff you done. As we saw in the gaming section, it can handle quite demanding games as well, so you won't have any problems there. And software, there's loads of productivity features on here with things like floating windows, split screen, and having that little setup with the keyboard and the mouse really kind of dials it in and makes it that bit more like a laptop. I think one of the main highlights for me was the battery on here. It lasted really well in my testing, and as I said, you can probably get 2 to 3 days light to medium use, and with heavy use you're definitely going to get through a day. So in that regards, that 12,000 mAh battery paired with the efficiency of the Snapdragon 7S Gen 4 really does work well. So you're getting really good battery life on it. Overall, if you're using it as a media consumption tablet or even for gaming, then you can't really go wrong. Those who want to use it for productivity like students, again with that little setup with the keyboard, which is actually quite good as well, then I think you'll find it very useful. But that's my review on the Redmi Pad 2 Pro. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.